Hi all, welcome back today to Basics of Mechanical Ventilation Part 2, where we will be discussing the ventilator end of delivering a breath. In last class Part 1 we talked about what happens during a spontaneous ventilation in us, the human side of it. So today we will be looking at the ventilator side of it. And forehand apologies if something goes wrong during my presentation, because this is the first time I am trying this PPT presentation through my tablet. I thought it will be easier to draw diagrams in this. So if it takes some time for me to figure out, I apologize earlier. So yes, so what I am trying to achieve through this part 2 is for us to know about what are phase variables, what are control variables, conditional variables, baseline variables, and some settings on ventilator. Settings as in I am not going to teach you how to set for different conditions, that will be dealt in a different class. Here what are the knobs and settings that you will see in a conventional ventilator. Okay, so phase variables are variables that determine the start, continuation and end of inspiration. Control variables are the variables that you set on a ventilator. Okay, meaning those parameters remain constant despite whatever happens in the airway or the parenchyma of the patient. See, suppose you set the pressure or the inspiratory pressure to be at say 18. Okay, so 18 is the pressure if you want to set, and that is going to be constant. The ventilator will deliver that 18 pressure, that will be the control variable. The rest will change as a measure of pulmonary mechanics. Okay, so those are all dependent variables, those become dependent variables, and control variable are the independent variables. Conditional variables are measured parameters by the ventilator. You do not set them, but the ventilator measures them based upon how the breath is. Baseline variable, it can be considered separately or as a part of a phase variable. Phase variable is basically usually used to talk about only the inspiration. Baseline variable is what happens during an expiration. Expiration is generally a passive process, isn't it so? But even during the passive process, some amount of pressure continuously exists, and that is the baseline variable, and that is your PEEP. Okay, so throughout the ventilator presentation, I will be using PIP and PEEP. Okay, I will not tell PIP and PEEP because during presentation it will get lost in translation. PIP is peak inspiratory pressure or peak inspirational pressure. PEEP is positive end expiratory pressure. Okay, all right. So what is the ventilator's function? The ventilator's function is basically to so there is no how to tell. I don't see any wordings in this. Okay, I'll just write it out. So ventilator function is this. Ventilator function is to provide a breath, isn't it so? So how is it going to provide a breath? It is going to provide a breath by increasing flow or increasing pressure. Note that I have not talked about volume, because the ventilator does not actually deliver a volume within quotations. It's actually increase in flow which is measured in terms of volume. Okay, so this increases the pressure in the proximal airway, and whenever gas flow happens, it always happens from a high pressure area to a low pressure area. So airway is a high pressure now, alveolar is at a lower pressure, so it transfers to alveoli. Okay, so this is how from proximal airway to distal airway the delivery of gas happens, and each breath happens in a cycle. Okay, so there are two parts, inspiration and expiration. Correct? So both of them together is called as one breath cycle. So when you say the patient is having 30 breaths per minute, it means there are 30 inspiratory and expiratory cycle, each cycle having one inspiratory and one inspiratory and one expiratory component. So let's talk about phase variables. Phase variables are the phases in one cycle of breath. Okay, in one single breath there are these many phases which happens. So there is an inspiration and expiration we talked about. There is something that should start the inspiration, correct? So that is called as a trigger. Then there is something that should sustain that inspiration, because patient is unable to do so in this situation. So it's not enough you start, you have to maintain it, and that is called target. It can also be called as limit. It is also called as, there are multiple controls. Okay, so control, target, limit, whatever term you use, they are all the same. That is the parameter that is used to sustain inspiration, and it is determined by the method of flow delivery. Then the patient cannot go on inspiring, isn't it? So the inspiration has to stop at some point in time, and that method of stopping is determined by cycle. Okay, so cycle determines when inspiration ends, and after inspiration ends there is exhalation time or expiration time, and the proximal airway pressure is maintained at some x value during this expiration. That is called as baseline variable, or PEEP, positive end expiratory pressure. Next we will talk about trigger. So what is trigger? Trigger is the variable that starts a inspiration. Okay, so phase variable, when you generally say phase variable, it actually means the variables that determine the start, continuation and end of inspiration. Okay, so keep it as simple as that. So trigger can be patient triggered or ventilator triggered. So there are three parameters. If you set time, it becomes ventilator triggered. If you set a flow or pressure, it becomes patient triggered. Is it complicated? It is not actually so. See, you want the patient to breathe at some Ex times per minute. Suppose this patient's normal respiratory rate should be 12 per minute. Imagine. Okay, and this patient is unable to take a breath. So if the patient is unable to take a breath, then you have to completely depend on the ventilator to start an inspiration. How do you make a ventilator give a breath? You tell the ventilator, boss, if the patient is not taking a breath for X amount of time, you trigger a breath. So it is basically time dependent. Okay, so time, if you set time, it becomes a ventilator triggered breath. So for a patient to breathe at 12 per minute, then you have to set the ventilator timing at 5 seconds, or in other words, every 5 seconds you want the ventilator to give one breath. Okay, so that is the frequency. So it is dependent on the ventilator. What about patient triggered? You have a flow, you have pressure. Okay, patient triggered is patient is able to take a breath but unable to do so to full capacity. That is why the patient is on ventilator. If the patient is able to do a complete breath, then patient will not be on a ventilator, isn't it so? So here patient is able to start the inspiration but unable to go through the complete spontaneous mode of ventilation. So you either set flow or pressure for the patient as a threshold. So if the patient is taking a breath in, what happens? The flow reduces or the pressure reduces. If it reduces below the threshold set by you on the ventilator, then ventilator gives a breath to the patient. Okay, so here patient starts the ventilation, but rest, how much pressure is given or how much flow is given and when inspiration ends is all determined by the ventilator. So trigger just means how the ventilator is going to initiate a breath, on what parameter is the patient going to receive a breath from the ventilator. So the most common manner to set the time trigger is by setting respiratory rate in a ventilator. If you say control breath, it means it's a ventilator triggered breath. And what is the variable? It is time for a ventilator trigger. Patient triggered breath is also called as assist breath, and the trigger usually happens only during the expiration phase. Makes sense, no? That is when it is going to be a synchronized breath. You cannot have the patient take a breath during inspiratory phase and then ventilator have supported. That's not physiological, correct? So it happens usually during expiration phase, and the respiratory efforts during inspiration are not supported because again it is not physiological. Okay. So the advantage with patient triggered breath is that it gives some autonomy for the patient to alter the breathing patterns. Suppose a patient wants to take breath once in 3 seconds at one point in time, then once in 4 seconds at one point in time, then 1 in 3 seconds. It gives autonomy compared to a ventilator triggered where it is going to be set at once per 5 seconds. Okay. So for these things to happen properly, you need to have a good ventilator. Good ventilator as in a ventilator that recognizes that a patient is trying to take a breath. If the ventilator does not recognize, then it's of no use, correct, for you to set a patient trigger. For this recognition, you need a proper flow sensor. Okay. So without a flow sensor, then it is ventilator does its own work because it does not sense the patient starting a breath or ending a breath or whatever. Okay. So you need to have a proper flow sensor for the ventilator to identify that the patient is triggering a breath by flow or pressure. Okay. So only then the patient comfort will be improved, synchrony will be better. When the patient starts, if the ventilator also gives a breath, then it becomes a good synchronized breath. If patient is triggering here and the ventilator is not giving breath and suddenly ventilator gives a breath here, then there is no synchrony between what patient wants and what ventilator gives. So what's the difference between a pressure trigger and a flow trigger? See, pressure trigger is changes in pressure in the circuit as a result of patient's respiratory efforts, and that is detected by the ventilator. So the proximal airway pressure falls basically, and if it exceeds the set trigger, then ventilator initiates a breath. For flow trigger to happen, there is something called as bias flow that you should know. Bias flow is flow that happens throughout the phase of respiration, even during expiratory phase. So when the ventilator detects what happens during the inspiration and expiration. So during expiration, some amount of flow is happening, which is called as bias flow. From the inspiratory limb, it goes on to the expiratory limb of the ventilator. And if the same flow that happens during the inspiratory phase, or in the inspiratory limb, I am sorry. Alright, so let me come back again once again. So from beginning. So you have an inspiratory limb, you have an expiratory limb. Alright. During the patient in the expiration phase, there is a flow of gas. Okay, inspiratory limb of the ventilator, expiratory limb of the ventilator. If suppose 10 ml goes in the inspiratory limb and in the expiratory limb also same 10 ml is there, then that means the patient has not taken a breath in between. Isn't it so? This is the endotracheal tube. If the patient is taking a breath, what happens? Some amount of flow goes into the patient and only the rest goes here, isn't it? So 10 minus X, whatever patient is taking in is going in. So the ventilator will detect, okay, the patient has taken some amount of this bias flow, which means the patient must be trying to take a breath. So the ventilator triggers a breath. If there is no effort, then gas exiting the inspiratory limb is equal to gas exiting the expiratory limb. If patient breathes in, there is a decreased flow. And if this decrease exceeds the set trigger, then ventilator initiates a breath. What is the importance of bias flow? Bias flow is to satisfy the needs of patient at the earliest. The ventilator will not know when the patient is going to take a breath. Okay, unless there is continuous amount of flow, when the patient takes a breath, there will be no gas. Isn't it so? So that is why bias flow is important. Flow triggering allows the patient to trigger ventilator with less effort compared to that of a pressure trigger. And pressure trigger is especially difficult if the patient is having a small ET tube or if the patient is already having auto PWP, as happens during gas trapping, as happens during an asthma. So let us see this with an example of a diagram. So this is a diagram where you have the inspiratory limb of ventilator, this is the expiratory limb of the ventilator, this is the ventilator, this is the patient and endotracheal tube. Okay. So here you have this continuous bias flow of 10 liter per minute. Correct? If the patient is taking a breath in, what happens? If the patient is taking a breath of 3 liter per minute, the rest of the 7 liters goes into ventilator. So the ventilator recognizes that the patient has taken some amount of flow and it triggers a breath. So this will be a flow trigger. So if you see the second diagram, what you see is the pressure in the tubings is basically at 0 during expiration. Correct? During expiration there is going to be no pressure except your PWP. So forget about that for a second. The airway pressure is also 0. If the patient is going to take a breath in, then the airway pressure becomes negative. This drop in pressure is sensed by the ventilator, saying okay, there is a drop in pressure, so that means the patient is trying to take a breath in, so I need to provide a breath to the patient. So this is what happens during a flow trigger. This is how ventilator initiates a breath. Okay, patient trigger. For a time trigger, none of these needs to happen, isn't it? So a drop in flow need not happen, a drop in pressure need not happen, because it is just time dependent. So when you have a graphic like this, you will know whether it is a control breath or a assist breath. Okay. So we will see something about assist, control or hybrid trigger before going into this graphic. So now we saw a control breath or a control trigger which is time triggered. You saw assist breath or assist triggered rather, where it depended on the patient taking in a flow or dropping some pressure. Correct? So a combination of both is called as assist, control or hybrid trigger. I think most of you must have seen this A by C in your ventilators, isn't it so? So both a control respiratory rate and either a pressure or flow trigger are set. What is the importance here? If the patient triggers a breath before the set time, then patient triggered breath will be initiated. If the patient has not initiated breath within the time set, then ventilator initiates a breath. Either way, patient receives a breath. Okay. So say if you have set every 5 seconds, patient should receive a breath. Okay. So in that case, the ventilator will wait if you have set the assist control mode. If the patient is triggering a breath at 4 seconds or 3 seconds, then it will be a patient triggered breath. Till 5 seconds also patient is not initiating a breath, then ventilator will think, boss, this is not happening properly, so my time is up, so I will initiate a ventilator triggered breath. So this determines the means of initiation but has no say over other variables. How do you know when you set a assist control mode which is patient triggered and which is ventilator triggered? You look at the waveform, pressure time or a flow time waveform. Here I have given a pressure and time waveform. A control breath will not have a drop in pressure. Only an assist breath or patient triggered breath will have this negative deflection, because just now we saw there is a drop in pressure when the patient tries to take a breath. That's what happens spontaneously also, correct? So when there is a downward deflection in the pressure tracing, that means it's a patient triggered breath or an assist breath. When there is no downward deflection, it means it's a ventilator triggered breath. Okay, got the difference? This is very important for us to learn ventilator graphics in future classes. So, oh, I have an empty slide here. Okay, right. So assist, control or hybrid trigger, what determines the respiratory rate? We already discussed. What determines a respiratory rate? Basically the rate. Okay, rate at which the patient breathes. Suppose you have a control at 10 per minute or 1 per every 6 seconds. Both are same. Correct. My mathematics is weak, but assume this is correct if I am not right. Okay. and say the patient is unable to initiate a breath at 6 seconds. So at 6 seconds patient is not having a breath, then the ventilator gives a breath. So minimum patient will receive at least 10 breaths if the patient has no efforts whatsoever. If the patient is having capability to breathe 20 per minute, then 20 per minute means 1 every 3 seconds, correct? So that is less than your controlled or control set time. So that means the patient will receive support for or assist for all the 20 breaths. Similarly for 15. Okay, but practically these are all examples, but practically it's usually a combination of patient and assisted breaths. That is why you need to look at the ventilator. If the ventilator will tell you the set respiratory rate is 10 per minute, but the total respiratory rate might be 13 or 15 or 20 depending upon how the patient is responding. Okay, so this assist control serves as a backup rate, basically backup for something to fall back on in case the patient fails to initiate a breath. Imagine a situation where you have a ventilator which only triggers a breath if the patient is taking a breath. What happens if the patient is not taking a breath? Is the patient going to receive no breath at all? You get my point. So assist control mode will have it's like a backup mode. In case the patient does not take a breath, also patient will receive a minimum set amount of breath that is set by you. So this is about the trigger, what initiates a breath. Now we are coming to target or control or limit. So target is what sustains the inspiration or the method of flow delivery to maintain the inspiration. It's either flow or pressure and it is never volume. Okay, tidal volume is not a target variable, rather volume delivered per unit time, which is flow, that becomes the target variable. So it's either flow or pressure and not volume. Okay, because when you say X amount of volume needs to be delivered, it does not tell how the flow should be administered. Okay, so setting a tidal volume does not say whether that volume is to be delivered over a short amount of time, whether the volume is going to be delivered over this much amount of time, isn't it so? So low flow rate, high flow rate, those will not be determined. That is why only flow or pressure is usually set as a target variable. So this is a formula that we discussed in last class also, and you will see this recurrently throughout the ventilation presentation. Flow is how to tell, it varies as a function of airway pressure minus alveolar pressure divided by resistance in airways. Okay, so set variable is the independent variable, this we discussed already. What is the dependent variable dependent on? It depends on the other parameters. For example, if I say Q is equal to airway pressure minus alveolar pressure by resistance. So if I say like this, if I put flow as the target, okay, so this is set, this becomes the independent variable, this is not going to change based upon the pulmonary mechanics. What does change is your airway pressure as a measure of your resistance. Got my point? So that is that becomes the dependent variable. So let us see that in more detail. So we already saw either flow or pressure to be the target variable. So flow target is, when you set flow as the target, the proximal airway pressure becomes dependent variable. When you set pressure as the target, flow becomes the dependent variable. The other one becomes the dependent variable. When you see the waveform, it can be a square waveform or a decelerating flow pattern. Because flow is the dependent variable, this can vary. When you set pressure as the target, flow is usually only decelerating. We will see why this sort of waveforms happen. Okay. So with the constant sort of flow waveform, so this is a constant flow. Okay. So with the constant sort of flow waveform, also known as square or rectangle waveform pattern, the inspiratory flow constantly rises or instantly rises at the beginning of breath and it becomes highest immediately, okay, and slowly it becomes constant and then decelerates. In a decelerating ramp, it rises to high heights and starts decelerating immediately without having this plateau, okay. So during a constant flow, during the inspiratory cycle part or the middle of inspiration, there is a constant flow. In a decelerating ramp, there is a decelerating flow, okay. So in decelerating flow, inspiratory flow is highest during inspiration and later on it precipitates to zero flow. As air fills the alveoli pressure increases, correct. So proximal airway pressure will remain constant in a pressure targeted mode. So what happens to flow? If you remember this formula, we can do this again. So shall we do it? So this is flow. Flow is airway pressure minus alveolar pressure divided by resistance, okay. So here you have a airway pressure that is set as constant, correct. So during inspiratory phase, the alveolar pressure is initially low and slowly increases, correct. So if this alveolar pressure slowly increases, if flow has to remain constant, what am I talking about? Just a moment, give me some moment to gather my thoughts. Yeah, sorry, had a bit of thought block there. Yes. So you have a pressure targeted ventilation, okay. So pressure is constant. During inspiration, the provided your resistance does not change much, assuming in a very nice stable sort of ventilation patient. So your alveolar pressure increases, correct. If this equation should not change and if this airway pressure is the constant, then the flow has to decrease, correct. So that is why you have usually this decelerating ramp kind of graphic, okay. So flow must decrease as alveolar pressure increases. So coming to the next one, this is just a proximal airway pressure where it remains constant during inspiration. Not much of explanation is required for this, okay. Next one. So here you have this formula. We are going to see two different situations and what happens during those two different situations. So if the patient is going to bite the endotracheal tube, what will happen? Your resistance increases, correct. The resistance in the airway is going to increase. Suppose you have a flow targeted patient, then this flow has to remain unaffected. This should not change. This has increased. So if this has to remain unchanged, your airway pressure will be increased by the ventilator. So for the ventilator to deliver this constant flow at this increased resistance, ventilator will increase the pressure that it delivers. So that is why pressure becomes dependent. This dependency is based upon your resistance. I hope I am making sense. So same equation, same resistance increase, but if the patient is on a pressure targeted ventilation, okay. So here the pressure remains unaffected, that is the independent variable here, okay. So Q is equal to airway minus alveolar by resistance. So this should not be affected, okay. So because this is independent set by the ventilator, it is going to deliver. The resistance has increased. So if resistance has increased, for the ventilator to deliver this pressure at your set value, your flow should decrease, okay, because this equation decreases, isn't it? So this is physics, okay. Try not to think about this very intuitively, I will say. So this is pure physics. If the denominator increases, your final value reduces, correct? As simple as that. So the other situation where you have a patient who is having a sustained inspiratory effort, okay. So the alveolar pressure is going to be low, correct. You don't expect the alveolar pressure to rise as much as expected. If the patient is in a flow targeted ventilation, this has to remain unaffected. So if this has to remain unaffected, then your airway pressure also will reduce, correct. Physics, mathematics. If the patient is in the same situation with low alveolar pressure, but here the airway pressure is the independent variable in a pressure targeted mode, then if this is decreasing, what will happen to the final equation? Your flow will increase, correct? So that's all. So that is all. That is why the opposite variable becomes the dependent variable. So next, in a flow targeted mode, this sort of dip in a pressure curve, pressure time curve, indicates that the patient is trying to have an inspiratory effort. Okay, just wanted to put this graphic out there, that's all. So now we have talked about what starts an inspiration, what maintains an inspiration, and their independent and dependent variables. Now the patient has to stop the breath. Okay, so there should be a termination to this inspiration. So that is cycle. Cycle can be either a volume cycle, time cycle, or a flow cycle. Meaning you can set at what point in time the inspiration will stop. Volume cycle means the inspiration will continue till some set amount of volume is reached. Flow cycle is it continues until the inspiratory flow diminishes to a set value. Time cycle is till a particular set time has elapsed. This does not require too much explanation on my part. I think this is pretty basic. Okay. So here it is a pressure targeted ventilation. You have a pressure cycled and a flow cycled curve happening here. Correct? So the pressure and flow waveforms in a pressure targeted mode is demonstrating this decelerating ramp, correct? Decelerating ramp sort of flow waveform. So the proximal airway pressure remains constant, isn't it so? Because this is pressure targeted. You do not expect the pressure to change much, and this airway pressure remains constant. As air fills the alveoli, alveolar pressure starts increasing, correct? Alveolar pressure starts increasing. So that means your flow will decrease, correct? That is what we saw earlier in the formula, correct? So as alveolar pressure increases, the flow reduces. Assuming the resistance does not change much, this produces this decelerating ramp waveform. Okay. In a flow cycled, pressure targeted but flow cycled. So again the pressure is targeted, so this remains constant. If it is flow cycled, so what determines the cycling here? What determined the cycling here? It is the pressure, correct? It is the, it's the pressure. So if it is flow cycled, what happens here? So the flow rises, so that is the peak inspiratory flow rate. Then you have said that the ventilator should stop the inspiration when the flow rate falls to 25% of the initial value. So at this point in time, ventilator will cut off the inspiration and the patient will automatically go for the expiration. Okay, so this is the cutoff point for a flow cycled ventilation. So these are all your phase variables. The last part of variable is during the expiration, that is the baseline variable. Baseline variable is PEEP. What is the importance of PEEP? Your positive end expiratory pressure is the one which increases and maintains your FRC, functional residual capacity. This is important so that the alveoli do not collapse. It improves oxygenation during your expiration phase especially. Inspiration, yes, obvious for obvious reasons, but this FRC is the only amount of gas that is remaining for oxygenation to happen during the expiration phase. This PEEP recruits collapsed alveoli. So especially in conditions like ARDS, the alveoli will get recruited more and more for ventilation to happen or gas exchange to happen. So that is the importance of PEEP. You do not want the lungs to completely collapse during an expiration. That is why you set a PEEP. Some pressures knobs on ventilator. I think all of you must have seen this PIP, correct? PIP is peak inspiratory pressure. Peak inspiratory pressure is pressure set above the end expiratory pressure to cause an inspiration, okay, by a change in airway pressure. PEEP we just now saw. Usually it's called as PEEP when you use it along with the assist control mode or a mandatory ventilation or your general sort of modes. If you put it along with CPAP, I mean, if you put it along with a spontaneous breath, suppose patient is breathing spontaneously, starting, maintaining, ending inspiration spontaneously, but requires still some amount of pressure to keep his or her airways open, then it becomes a CPAP, continuous positive airway pressure, because both during inspiratory and expiratory cycles, patient is receiving some amount of pressure. Ti is inspiratory time. See, your breath is both inspiration and expiration, correct? So, you set the inspiratory time, and depending upon your total respiratory set, your expiratory time will vary. Okay, respiratory rate, it's the number of breaths taken per minute. FiO2 is fractional concentration of inspired oxygen, which is approximately 21% in room air. Vt is tidal volume, amount of gas that is delivered during inspiration expressed as ml. The ventilator will measure the expired tidal volume to know if there is any loss in between. We will talk about that more later on, not now, later on, okay, because I think this class has already gone on for too long. So, this is let's not go into the graphics of it, just note that this is the inspiratory form and this is the expiratory form. This is the inspiratory time and this is the expiratory time. So, together this forms one breath cycle, correct? So, one complete breath is this inspiration and expiration. So, here expiratory time is more compared to that of inspiration, which is what we usually set. You usually have expiration slightly more compared to that of your inspiration. Here if you see your inspiration is very big, but your expiration is very small. So, your inspiration is to expiration ratio is 4:1. Okay. So, this is just to tell you how to see for inspiratory and expiratory time. So, to put all of what we learned together, everything is dependent on every other thing. So, the independent variable will be the only thing that you actually control, whereas rest of the things are dependent on the compliance and resistance of the patient. Okay, so this is given by this equation of motion, where the change in pressure depends on the change in volume by compliance plus flow. Usually F is not the measure for flow, it is depicted as V and dot. It was difficult for me to put it on a PowerPoint mode, so I just depicted it as F into resistance plus K, where K is the constant that defines your PWP. Okay. So, pressure and flow are measured generally by the transducer, and volume is a derived parameter. It is not a direct parameter, it is a derived parameter. So, volume, the thing is, you cannot actually determine the exact amount of volume the patient is receiving or expiring out, because you have this ventilator and you have this circuit that are going in. Some amount of volume will get lost in this compressible volume of the circuit. Okay. So, this volume that is in the ventilator tubing may never reach the patient. Then you have the ET tube, then you have the lungs of the patient, correct? So, rest of the volume reaches the patient, but you do not know how much is actually reaching the alveoli. So, you do not know the alveolar ventilation or alveolar tidal volume. So, all you have is only indirect measurements. Again, there are problem in indirect measurements of volume. The problem is you need to have some sort of machine, correct, to measure the volume going in or coming out. Going in is not very easy, we determined that already. What about coming out? Can we do that? See, air leaks around your endotracheal tubes are possible. Your dead space is possible, your ventilator tubing is possible. These are the ways where your volume can get lost. Plus changes in temperature, humidification, secretions from the patient, all of these can influence the amount of gas or amount of volume that is delivered to the patient. So, measuring your volume at the proximal airway will actually eliminate most of the circuit compliance and other dead space factors, but you having to place a machine there at the endotracheal tube or the patient's airway, it again creates a dead space, correct? So, this again creates a dead space, it is an added weight, and this added weight can dislodge the ET tube, resulting in automatic extubation, and suctioning and all will become difficult. So, that's the problem with volumes. Okay, so that is why volume is difficult to measure, difficult to determine how much the patient is receiving, and it depends on so many factors. You need to see the patient and the ventilator together to know what is happening. Ventilator is just a machine, you are the brain behind it. Okay, so just because you set something on a ventilator does not mean it is going to go to the patient. There are so many other factors that determine it, and we need to stand by the patient to make sure what you set is what the patient is receiving and not something extra and not something less. So what we have learned today so far, we have learned all about the variables. Okay, what are dependent, what are independent, then what are the phase variables, what is a baseline variable, what is conditional variable. Then in phase variable we saw trigger, we saw target or control or limit, we saw cycle and what changes can happen and what determines whether ventilator or the patient is going to determine that. Some basic graphics we saw, correct? So that's it for today's class. Thank you guys for listening to me patiently. I know this is a long class, but unfortunately you have to sit through it if you want to understand something about ventilator. This is not very exhaustive. Okay, I'm not covering each and every topic of mechanical ventilation, and I don't think I'm qualified enough to do so either. But I thought I'll just share what I learned so far with you, so that management of a ventilated patient becomes easier. Thank you.